Hi everybody, welcome to New School Mining's YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in today. And today we're going to be looking at one of the products we sell on our website. This is our smart breakout board, ideally for helping cryptocurrency miners with the power needed to power their system. This board is really targeted at powering 6 GPUs from one server class power supply. In this case today, we've got a Dell 1400 watt power supply. This is one of those that takes the 200 to 277 volts. So you would need to run this on either 208 power, 3-phase power, or 240 volt power that you would find at a typical residence here in the US, or potentially 277 volt power in a more industrial building this could work with. But this power supply is an add-on that can come. The kit that you can get in its basic form is these 3 components. We can add GPU power cables for 6 GPUs, which are in these white slots here. The 2 black slots take these adapters. This one here is designed ultimately to really provide power to 3 SATA riser cards. And the other one, again, the other 3 SATA riser cards would give power. Plus we have this, some people are calling these a Pico power supply. It's a little DC to DC power supply. This will actually provide about 160 watts of power. This would plug in to your main motherboard, providing all the motherboard power that you need. Plenty for the low-end systems that we're typically running in these mining systems. Oftentimes have like a 55 or 65 watt processor on there. So whole motherboard with all the peripherals is generally maybe 100 watts. This will do 160, so that's plenty. That plugs into the 24-pin slot in the back of your motherboard. This would plug into the CPU power. Don't be concerned if you look at your board and it has an 8-pin connector. It will accept just the one 4-pin connector and provide the CPU power necessary. Additionally, it has a couple auxiliary connectors, one for a SATA. This would work great if you have a solid state disk that you're going to be using for your main system and not using a USB port. This connector here could be used, the Molex connector could be used for an external fan or something like that if you needed additional fans on the main system. So otherwise, this really takes care of riser cards. It takes care of the motherboard power. And then with these guys here, we can take care of all the GPUs. So the idea is that with this one power supply, we can power an entire 6 GPU system. This guy would just plug right in here. And the rest of the stuff would plug into those sockets. Now our breakout board, I said, was smart. The reason I'm saying that is because right down here, Arduino Micro, that we put right on the board. It's got a connector here, so you can hook up a serial programmer to this. So this actually can be reprogrammed by you. And we provide the default firmware that we put on this on our website and on GitHub. So you can take that, customize it any way you want. In addition, there are a couple other things. We've got a couple LEDs to give status. These bottom 2 LEDs are controlled by the Arduino Micro. And today that is programmed to monitor the voltage of the 12 volts coming from the power supply. And if it ever drops below, I think it's 11.5 volts, this light will start flashing. We have a switch here, which can be used to turn on and off the system that's running off of this. And additionally, we have a couple pins up here. This is connected to an RS485 interface chip and ultimately connected to the chip here. The idea with this connector is that you could chain several of these boards together and provide an adapter somewhere to a PC, and you actually could communicate with each of these boards and monitor the status of them. One other thing on our breakout board here, we've got a nice thick PCB here. This has actually got heavy copper layers on both sides. Traditional PCBs would have like a 2-ounce copper layer. This is actually using 4-ounce copper. To make sure that we have plenty of ability to transfer all the energy, all the power that we've got coming from this server power supply to all of these connectors. Over here, this is a DC to DC power converter. So this is taking the 12 volts coming from the server power supply, and it's generating 5 volts that is put on these black connectors here. That's important because that actually provides 5 volts on these SATA connectors. And what this does is really helps you lower the power consumption of your SATA riser cards and be just a little bit more efficient with the very cost-effective riser cards that we're using in this system. Now, if you've heard some negative things about SATA riser cards, there is definitely some potential issues with those if not dealt with properly in the design of your system. We have a whole article on that on our website, SATA riser cards, and kind of the pluses and minuses of them. At the end of the day, they're inexpensive to get, and if done right, you will not have the problems that people have mentioned. The key there is that you want to make sure that your cables are high quality cables. These are 18 gauge cables that are providing the power to there, so plenty of power can be provided to those riser cards. As I've said before, and other things that we've done, we've run over 1,000 GPUs on these for multiple years on this design with no issues whatsoever. Their SATA cables are not all equal. An example of that, this is a cable that we bought originally when we were doing our design from a supplier in China. The outside looks like a normal cable, but what's very interesting is if you cut that apart. So what I've got here is I've cut apart the cable that we bought from a Chinese supplier and the cables that we're offering. You can see a dramatic difference in the size of those. These are real 18 gauge wire. This is some pretty thin, I can't even imagine that's probably 22, 24 gauge at the actual amount of wire that's there. Night and day difference. So while these might work fine if you were just doing a drive on them or something, this is not going to work for connecting up to a riser card and powering a GPU. And so this is where we had problems with a connector like this, and ultimately what it did was it melted down in here in the bottom because it just got too hot, the wire got too hot, and ultimately it melted. The wire though, the connector in here did not go. It was the wire that burned where it was crimped in the inside of this. So thanks for viewing our video today. Hopefully you learned a little bit more about our breakout board, our smart breakout board that we're offering, and would consider using it in your next build. We really like this design because you don't have to have an ATX power supply and a server power supply to power your system. And depending on wattage, this could be flexible and power more than 6 GPUs, although we sell it mostly as a 6 GPU system, just because that really is pretty well insured to work with most any GPU out there. Higher wattage GPUs will need the power that this provides.